to go ahead and record? In just a couple of minutes, Courtney will join us. I know she was coming from another meeting.
I'm here. Hi, everyone.
Oh, there you are. She is just moved to University of Illinois, and so her computer arrangements aren't fully complete. So we're not going to be able to see you, Courtney. Is that right?
That's right. My apologies. I'm promised my technology will be here soon.
Okay, good. Rosa, are you able to start the recording?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yep.
It doesn't show it for some. Well, maybe it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, I see it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I think most of us know each other, but why don't we go ahead and just do a quick round of introductions, where we're coming from, so that we can put a place to a name, etc. So you all know me. I'm Mark, and I'm at the NCRCRD, facilitated at Michigan State University. Courtney, why don't you go ahead, and then Rosa, then we'll work our way around.
Hi, everybody. Courtney Cuthbertson, previously with Michigan State University Extension and currently with University of Illinois.
Rosa, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. I'm Rosa. I'm with the center and been working on this FSA. So if there's anything that you guys have questions on or information, just let me know. That's what I'm here for. So,
and she will be in Detroit, so yeah. She'll be helping there as well. Allison.
Hi everyone, I'm Allison Brennan. I am an assistant professor and extension mental health specialist at Montana State University, but formerly with the center.
And Eric.
Hi, Eric Karbowski. I am the new extension educator for the Farm Stress Program here in Mount Pleasant.
Very good. Lori?
Hi, I'm a professor at UW-Madison Division of Extension. I'm a human development and relationship educator. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then John Leatherman and then John Schutzke.
Hi, I'm John Leatherman. I'm at Kansas State University and an extension outreach specialist.
And I'm John Schutzke. I'm a campus-based specialist and professor here in Madison at University of Wisconsin. My work is in agricultural health and safety and occupational exposures, including a little bit on stress and mental health.
So we also have, I'm sorry. Caitlin. Oh, Caitlin's joining us. Great. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Macy. I was originally at the University of Minnesota, but now I'm in Indiana. I work currently as a district veterinarian for the state of Indiana.
Great, thanks.
And I'm Joanne David Heiser. I'm an extension educator in Michigan State University Extension.
Thanks, Joanne. Okay, and so we have Jamie Delafield, Pam Schallhorn, and Andrea Bjornstead. And Roger Betts also joining the team, but aren't on the call right now, but we'll see them in Detroit. So what we'd like to do is just kind of give you a little prepping for your facilitation role. And to start off, there's a training on Tuesday and Thursday, as you all know. There are a total of 500 people who we'll be working with. About 70% of these had gone through the original Ag Learn training and joined the Zoom session discussions with all of you. About 30%, however, are new, and they've just done the Ag Learn training and they have not done the Zoom discussion. So we're going to try to, when we do our evaluations for the in-person training, we'll try to get information about whether or not they were able to participate in the Zoom sessions, because I think it might make a difference in terms of how this training goes. There will be on each day, a set of 10 facilitators in breakout rooms. The breakout rooms will be roundtable oriented. So that's kind of the format. And let me turn to this. Let me share my screen here. Did I share the right thing? You see Farm Stress Training Facilitators Guide?
Mark, do you want to start with the agenda so that folks have an idea of where the breakouts fit in the scheme of everything?
Sure, hang on. I had sent that earlier to you. It'll take me just a second to pull that up.
And then Mark, it looks like Esther has also joined in.
Oh, well, while I'm pulling the schedule up, Esther, would you like to introduce yourself? I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared here for this. I gotta find the document. Just one moment, please.
Mark, I just sent it through again, so it will pop up to the top of your inbox.
Thanks.
Hey, Mark, I'm sorry about that. We were just working out some internal issues on the hotel side.
Oh, okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Esther.
I'm actually joining a colleague from our farm loan section. This is Craig Iveson. Sorry, we're going to share a screen. He's right here.
Hello. You don't have
Hi there. Okay, well, great. Esther, I think you have met everybody on this call except for Eric Karbowski. So I just want to introduce you to him, or the two of you together to each other.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hi, Esther.
Okay, so we have the schedule, and so on Tuesday, you can see the schedule will have a very large general session. I think you know that this meeting is also together with another very large meeting. And so this 8 to 8:30 one will be a very general session for everybody attending this this meeting, including the 500 that we'll be working with. And so from 8:45 to 9:15, we'll have a farm stress general session where we'll sort of lay out the day and review the training and the purpose of the training. Then we have a half an hour of discussion on physical safety in the office and on the farm. That will be done by one of the safety professionals. Who is that with again, Esther?
His name is Mike DeFrancisco. He's with it's not the government Department of Homeland Security. He's our USDA Homeland Security guy. And he's going to be doing it with a woman named Nicole Steele.
Okay, great. So once we've laid out the day and done the physical safety, we're going to transition into some breakout sessions. And so you can see the first breakout session is from 10:30 to 12. And then we have our lunch, and then we have another breakout session from 1:15 to 2:30. And finally another from 2:45 to 4. So you can see that much of the day is really working within these smaller groups that you'll be facilitating and leading. And so that's what we want to talk about is your role during the day on Tuesday. And then we'll close with a review session, general session. And then we'll repeat the set of events on Thursday, but well, we've moved some things around so that just because of the schedule, the Farm Stress General session is going to be a little bit, shifted around a little bit, but it's basically the same kind of scenario. And you have this schedule, I've sent it to you. Okay. Any questions about sort of the layout of the day?
And Mark, just so instructors have a sense of who all will be there, obviously we'll have our training, our employees who are participating in training. We've also invited some folks from the department to come just observe. Our agency has a training arm, and so we've invited a woman named Valerie to come observe. So Gwen should recognize her name because she worked with us on the ACLERN piece. That's part of our long-term goal, is to be able to fold this training into other parts of our kind of employee continuing education and onboarding spaces. So she's going to be there for that. And then we also will have somebody from our agency's customer experience division to come observe, just because, this has implications in how we relate and how we work with customers.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks. Let me share my screen now for the draft of the facilitator's guide. And this is a work in progress, so if you see anything as we're discussing that you think might be useful or helpful, we can certainly add it or add a little detail. Thanks to Courtney for laying this out. We talked a little earlier today, and so we're mapping this out. So this facilitator guide gives you a little information about the breakout sessions and when they'll be. Each of you will have 20 to 25 people in your breakout sessions. We're gonna number people who are attending from 1 to 10. And Esther, I hope we can have the rooms labeled from the breakout rooms labeled from 1 to 10. And so we'll ask people to go to the appropriate room. And so throughout the day, the same people will be meeting together, but each of you will take a different room during the different breakout sessions, so that'll kind of mix things up a little bit in terms of your interaction and meeting with people, etc. So we'll give you that layout with when we send you the contact list and some other things as well. So you'll
should have a rooming map that'll be available when people check in. And Mark, did I hear you correctly? You said the instructors will be moving around, but people will stay in their same breakout.
Yes.
Okay.
We just thought that would be too much to add. We wanted to have a little bit of change up, but we didn't think it would be wise to try to switch people around in a single day like this. So if they know,
that might lead to a little confusion.
Yeah. So that's how we'll do that. And everybody coming to the training will have taken the online AgLearn training. In about 65 to 70% will have done the Zoom discussions with you, but some will not have. Okay, so I'm gonna pass this off to Courtney, and she's just gonna talk about sort of the structure of the breakout session and how that will go. And I'm showing it right here, but Courtney, can you see the screen all right? And would you like to take over here?
Sure, I'd be happy to talk through this. So also I'd ask if anyone is not speaking, if you could mute your mic. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. So the structure for the breakout sessions, as you can see, each one is about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half, which means that we are planning to have a bit of flexibility. You don't have to go exactly by the time guidelines here, but this is breaking it out for each session, what it can look like. So first, introducing the session and the process. Each breakout session is going to be pretty similar, so this might only apply to the very first breakout on Tuesday and the very first breakout on Thursday. as for subsequent breakout groups, you can say that the process will be very similar to what happened earlier in the day. Because the people will not be changing groups, the group introductions would apply to those first sessions, and they could apply in later sessions if you ask people to switch up the small groups that they're with. But you'll have 20 to 25 people in your room, and you want to have to make sure everybody gets time to practice and participate and be involved in the conversation. We want to further divide those groups into smaller groups of maybe 4 or 5 people. My understanding is that each of the rooms is going to have round tables that might seat up to 8 people. So asking the table to basically split in half. Then you can ask the participants in the small groups to introduce themselves, maybe say, what their name is, what state they're from, what their role is with FSA. So the big part of the breakout is going through the different scenarios that are set up, and there's one scenario per breakout session. So the idea is you would only get through one of those, and I believe Mark sent out the draft scenarios earlier. So each scenario is set up that it has an kind of introduction, here's some background, here's what we know is going on. So you'll share the scenario and then ask the small groups to kind of process the information that they've heard. So there are some preliminary questions, and we are working on adding some more to those. So you present the preliminary questions to the group and ask them to discuss that for about 15 minutes or so. And after the groups have had some time to process that and have their discussion, the purpose, really what we're trying to accomplish, is that people would feel more confident to be able to have some of these difficult conversations. So having that real time to practice is key. So after there's that time for the discussion about the scenario, each small group will do a role play where one person takes on the role of the farmer or producer, the other person takes on the role of FSA employee, to work on trying out some of those things the small group discussed. So some of the questions are, what things would you say to this person? So they can actually try that and see, how does it feel to ask that question? How does it feel to hear the information back? What do I do in real time? So that is basically round one. Before the groups start with this role play, it's okay if people in each role switch out with other members of their small group. If they're really struggling, they can ask someone else to step in, or they can ask for suggestions. We really want to do everything we can to encourage participation on this. So after about 10 minutes with that first role play, you'll see that with each of the scenarios, there's a section that's called update. So you don't want to read that part in the first round, but after they do that first role play, you share that update, which has new information, an update about what's going on with the scenario. And then there's an additional set of questions. So the group can take about 15 minutes to discuss the new information that they have, work on processing that information, and then they go back to the role play again now that they've got the new information. How might that change the interaction? What would they do? What would they say? And trying that out again. And at that time, you can remind people in the groups that they can switch roles. And for those who are not actively participating and taking on one of those roles, they can take notes on the observations that they make. What do they notice that works well? What do they notice that was not received well? What do they see in terms of body language and how to convey empathy, things like that. The end of the session is intended for a large group debrief. So you'll have all of the small groups come back together to talk about their observations and their reflections. And there are some example questions that could be asked, like, how did it go in your groups? What worked well? What did not work well? What kind of things did you notice? What body language communicated active listening? What resources did you feel that you needed in this scenario? So that might be for the person who took on the role of the FSA employee. What resources did that person feel like they needed? What extra information did they feel they needed? And then a question of, well, what would your next steps be in handling the situation? So that's the general structure of the breakout session. And I think that depending on, how people get filtered into the different groups and the dynamics and the rapport that is established, this should take all of the time of the breakout session, but it's possible that this will conclude and there's still time left in the session. So rather than letting people out for a longer break. Thanks for scrolling down, Mark. We've come up with a few different options of ways to keep the conversation going. So you can select one of these options to ask the group that you're working with. And as we are rotating rooms, the group may have already been asked this question, and if they tell you that, then you can move to a different one. But these are different things that might be useful for people to talk about and think about. So the first option is think about a recent time that you worked with a stressed customer. What happened? How could you tell that they were stressed? What did you do or say? What resources did the customer want? What were you able to provide? And if you were faced with this situation again, what would you do? So that's one option. Another option is when customers talk about the stresses they face, what kinds of things come up? Another option is what resources do customers tell you that they need? Another option would be what resources do you as an FSA employee need to be able to work with stressed customers, to handle your own stress, and then to maintain work-life balance. And again, these are all a draft right now. If you have ideas on ways to revise these, or you think there are additional questions that should be added, please send that information to probably Mark would be the best contact on that. Mark or me, either is fine. And we'll have a printed copy of the final version of this for you at the training. So you do not need to worry about printing this yourself. We will have a final copy for you. Mark, is there anything else? I guess one thing we do need to talk about, and Mark, I'll let you handle this. If we scroll back up, one of the goals that we have for the FSA training, the third goal is to increase the skill of employees in talking with and providing assistance to a farmer or rancher who expresses suicidal thoughts. So there was already information included in the online training about how to ask someone if they're thinking about suicide, and we've gotten some recent updates from FSA about how we will handle this during this in-person training. Mark, could you talk through that part? You're on mute also.
Thanks. I'll talk some, and then I'll ask Esther to also add a little context here. So we have sort of a best practice where where the best practice is to ask somebody, or something to the effect of, are you having suicidal thoughts? I noticed this, happening. And but the legal team at USDA and FSA have some real concerns about, being that direct with a question like this, and they're recommending an optional sort of approach to addressing it and asking to provide resources. And so we've asked for some specific language from the legal team about what they're recommending. In order to reconcile sort of the research-based best practice versus the legal concerns, in which we're understand and have to be sensitive to both, we're suggesting that each person be able to provide guidance about what the best practice is, but also provide information from the legal team about the recommendation from a legal standpoint about what would be best. And so we're hoping to get the feedback here, maybe even today, on sort of that language, but that's sort of how we're trying to reconcile the two pieces. And as you know, this is a pilot program, so we're encountering a couple little things that we have to negotiate and try to work through, and this is one of them. Esther, would you like to add any more to that?
No, unless we're going to get into the specifics of what we've discussed with attorneys. No, there's nothing else that I would share in terms of guidance at this point. It sounds like, well, when we get together on Monday as well, there'll be some time to go over things too, right?
Yeah. I think that the guidance will be coming in a more explicit written form. Is that correct?
Yes, we do have a little bit. I think there are two. So for the instructors, since you all haven't been a part of these discussions, there are two areas where our attorneys wanted to make major changes and make sure that employees are essentially protected from any potential liability issues. And so one topic has been addressed, and there is some guidance around it. We're waiting on the other piece right now. And they basically, the two areas they center on, you know, how far can we go into with customers, and then the other thing that we're still waiting on to be resolved is whether and when employees are permitted to engage law enforcement around suicide.
And we think that both of those questions are likely to emerge, so we want to be prepared to provide a response that's appropriate from the legal side, but we also want to be able, you know, from a research side, be able to share, you know, what best practice might be, and then I guess we have to be flexible about the different tension, the little bit of the tension that exists, right, until we kind of work it out, you know, since this is a pilot. So that's sort of, you know, what we have to be prepared for.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mark, just because, you know, obviously I think from our standpoint here in the office that I sit in, you know, obviously we'd like to be able to share what is best practice. This is training that we've never done before in USDA. It's really new, and this is a pilot, and so there's learning, and there's on all sides, you know, me included, as well as our attorneys. We are looking at whether or not they are going to be able to have somebody participate in the training, come and observe. We think that'll be a really great way to bring them up to speed and show them, you know, some of the situations that employees encounter in the field, and how that maybe interacts with some of the legal guidance that they've given. But yeah, I guess all that to say that, you know, I'm really proud of this training, and regardless of what guidance does come out from the attorneys, I think it represents a really big step forward for us as an agency. And we're just going to have to continue to work on these two issues and try and grow as we roll out training to the rest of the country.
Esther, I have a question. Would you say that in the winter or spring, when we did that session 3, we probably pushed the envelope a little bit? It sounds like.
Yeah, we definitely did. Yeah, that's probably going to change, that online course.
And then the only other comment, I mean, attorneys are smart people. I've also done a little bit of like liability type work, but the best way to protect yourself from liability is to follow best practices. I mean, I'm sure they know that, and they're balancing those components.
Yeah, the issue right now, it comes down to what's within an employee's scope of work, because that ensures that the federal government can protect an employee if there is a lawsuit.
Right.
So especially in scenario 2, as I read it, we're going to need to have some kind of clear recommendation for that one.
Yeah.
Is that the scenario around suicide? I don't have the scenarios right in front of me right now.
Yeah, there's definitely.
I'll show those scenarios in just a moment. But before we go there, but you're right, Lori, we will need to have some specific guidance on, you know, on sort of being able to provide you with some clear language so that you can articulate that clearly with the people you're working with. Are there any questions or suggestions about the facilitator's guide, you know, sort of what's expected and how this will all roll out on Tuesday, Thursday?
Mark, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So as a facilitator, I'm there on Tuesday, so I'll be all of us will be facilitating 3 sessions. Are those 3 sessions going to all look identical, or are we going to be switching topics as individuals between the 3?
Yeah, each, you know, there'll be a scenario for the morning session, a different scenario for the afternoon session, and then the later session will be the 3rd scenario.
Okay.
So you'll be working on all three scenarios at different points in time.
So we will, when we have the finalized scenarios and all of the wording is there, we will letter those the way that the breakouts are lettered in the facilitator guide, so it's clear which scenario goes with which session.
Yeah.
Mark, oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joanne.
Am I to understand that in a room, there's going to be 4 to 5 of these little groups operating at the same time, working on these scenarios, role plays, etc.
Yeah.
Okay.
There'll be
so we just kind of go around while that's happening and monitor them.
Exactly, yes. So it'll be about just going around and hearing where the groups are, and if somebody gets stuck, then trying to give some suggestions that might be helpful.
And then at the end of the session, I don't know if you could scroll down a little bit to what the end of the session is supposed to be. Okay, so the debrief. So the debrief is within the small groups, or is it as a whole group?
As a whole group.
Okay, if we could clarify that, that'd be good to write it out.
Well, not all 250 people. It'll be.
Put everybody in the room.
Yeah, everybody in your room.
20 or 25. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Mark, you kind of touched on this at the very beginning, but you're just, if I can elaborate a little bit, we had some employees who participated in your AgLearn facilitated, your initial facilitated webinars, the Zoom sessions, who aren't able to attend this time around. And so we opened it up. We have additional participants coming from other states as well as from the existing pilot states. So those folks, they will have taken the online training that John was referring to earlier before they arrive, but they will not have had the benefit of having had that conversation with you earlier in the spring.
Esther, do you have, are you keeping track of everyone that's attending then? And would you be able, would you be able to get me contact information for everyone from Montana?
Do you want it before you arrive, or can we do that after the session is over?
We can do that after. I just wanted to ask before I forgot about it.
Okay, I've taken note of that, but if you can remind me if I don't get back to you.
Excellent, thank you.
And Mark, just want to flag for you, I wanted to talk a little bit about hotel logistics, if there's a room for that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's finish up this part and make sure that we've got all those pieces covered, and then we'll talk logistics, etc. Okay, are there any other questions or comments or suggestions about the facilitator guide part? Okay, well, we will finalize this, and we'll have hard copies available for you in Detroit, but we'll also send it to you by email. We're going to send this along with the final set of the scenarios and questions, as well as a PDF version of the PowerPoint for the training, so that you'll just have those on hand. You can review them ahead of time just to be prepared for any questions that come up regarding the training, etc., for that context. So we'll get that out to you probably by Friday morning, just so that you've got PDFs of it, and we'll have hard copies as well.
Mark, I do have one question.
Yes.
During the sessions, will the participants get a copy of the scenario for people who are more visual learners and want to review it?
Yeah, we've talked about this. I think we're going to have just a few copies for your group, and we'll try to do it in pages so that they don't see the second part, you know, just the first page, and they can have it so that some people like to process by reading.
Yes.
So you can hand out the scenario and then part 2 of the scenario as you step into it. So we'll provide that to you so that you can hand it out to your groups.
Thank you.
We will also, in the introductory session, we're very sensitive on time, so we want to introduce you. So probably what Courtney and I will do is introduce you, and you can, just let people know who you are. And then once you get into your subgroups, then you can, talk a little bit more, introduce yourself in the context, and then when you break them up into groups of, into the tables, you can ask them to introduce themselves. And that way it won't take too much time, because if you have all 20 or 25 people introducing themselves, you'll just use up so much time. But I think if you have, 8 people, just say, where they're from, what their role is at FSA, and, and then boom, 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 we can go from there. But you want to be sensitive because of the time limitations. Okay.
Maybe this will come up later. I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Sure.
Are you planning to do any kind of a debriefing on Wednesday for lessons learned for Thursday, or?
Yeah, I'd really like to do that. We haven't set up a time. It might be possible. Esther, would you like to try for having a dinner on Wednesday as well? You're on mute.
Yeah, we could do a dinner, or we could also, you and Courtney are booked in the morning, but for sessions in the morning with our other groups, but we could do something in the afternoon too, like a debrief somewhere.
We have, yeah, we can do an afternoon. We have some people coming in on that second day. Caitlin, I think, is one of them.
Yeah, I was asking selfishly myself because I'm doing a mental health course training here, so I'm not flying until Wednesday.
Yeah, so we'll send out a note regarding a Wednesday debrief. We'll do something either in the mid-afternoon or maybe another dinner together or something, and we'll be able to talk about it and do a debrief.
So something Monday, something Wednesday.
Yeah, something. We already have the Monday thing set. And then we'll do something on Wednesday, and I'll send out a note about that once we get it set.
Yeah, and similarly, I'll be there around probably 6:30. I'll probably be a little later in the evening. So dinner would be great on Wednesday, if possible.
Lori, what time do you arrive?
I think I'm planning to get there about midday.
Midday.
So around noon or 1 o'clock, yeah.
Okay. So I think from a debriefing set, how do you guys feel about just having dinner together, say at 6:30 again? No objections?
I may not be available, but yeah.
Okay. Is that okay for you, Esther? Okay. All right, so let's tentatively plan on a 6:30 dinner together for those who can join. We'll do a debrief, and that'll give Lori and Caitlin a chance to learn from the experience. All of us a chance to learn, but especially them. Okay. Sure. Okay. Let me switch here.
I just have a quick question about our debriefing as you're switching.
Yeah.
How would you like us to capture the information, or do you want us to capture the information like on a large easel pad or notes, or?
Yeah, I think you could just take notes would be fine. We're also going to administer an evaluation. So in the, we'll think about how best to, what the appropriate time is to share those evaluations. But as we're doing the final wrap up for the day, we'll pass out evaluations and we'll ask for feedback from all the participants. So we'll do that, but as you're kind of going through, if you have ideas, thoughts, notes, things that we can all learn from, I think just making note of it and, talking about it for a debrief would be great.
Mark, do we want big easel, like big, not easels, but poster thing, you know, like the little sticky things that go on the walls where people can take down some big concepts or anything like that?
I think that's a good question. I would open it up to the group and maybe start with Courtney about whether that would be a good option for us given the framework we have.
I think that could be really useful for the group debrief at the end. If groups are taking notes on those big Post-its during the discussion and during the role play, that would help them to be able to recall what the points are that they're really pulling out of it at the end. And then to have that visual, because some people are much more visual and they prefer to read over hearing information, that I think that could be helpful. I'm curious to hear what the rest of the group thinks.
I've found it to be very helpful to have a visual, like you were saying, Courtney. It's very helpful to have sort of a easel pad or whatever you would call those sticky large Post-it pads on the wall are very helpful to keep everyone on the same page.
Okay.
Mark, is that something that MSU can take care of on your side, or do I need to figure it out on our side?
Let me see if I can. I think it's easier for us to bring it since we're driving. So we'll try to get 10 of these for each of the.
We got one guy driving from Virginia up through that they were stocking up, and he wasn't sure he was going to have enough room in his vehicle.
Yeah, we've already loaded it up with quite a few things.
Yeah. So okay, we'll figure it out. Do you, Esther, I'm not sure if you know anything about the rooms, but is there a place to, if you write on the thing, you can put it up on the board? So we'll need markers and these big sticky things. Do we need easels?
I'm going to say no because we have to pay for them. I think what we'll have to do is we'll have to put the stickies on the walls and then write on the walls.
I would think we could get them on the walls. Hopefully it's not like a carpeted kind of wall.
Oh, yikes. Yeah, I don't think, yeah, I think it'll be like a normal hotel wall.
Yeah, okay.
Or just a normal wall.
Normal wall. Sometimes the folding walls are cloth.
Oh, that's true. I was trying to imagine what a carpeted wall would look like.
Yeah. That's the image I have in my mind of those folding walls. They look like carpet.
Okay, I was imagining like a shag or something. Okay, got it.
All right. So, Courtney, would you like to step in and just review each of the scenarios and sort of how we're planning, which scenario goes with which session, and then maybe any questions or feedback from the crew?
Sure. So the first situation or scenario that we've got, there's some information at the top that was so it was given to us and created from feedback that we were getting from participants in the course, that these are situations that come up quite often. So we've kind of combined some of the options and tried to build the scenario around this idea. So this first scenario is about a fourth-generation dairy farmer who is sinking deeper and deeper into debt and not seeming to quite get how bad the situation is. So being in denial about the financial situation, and then you're noticing as an FSA employee that the appearance of the farm and of the herd was not quite as nice as you had seen them before. So as I mentioned before, the first part is really, the first questions are really about identifying what's going on in the situation and what might you say. With the update, it's, okay, what's been going on more recently? And in this situation, it's that there was flooding that led to a loss of some of the herd, some of the cows, and that this farmer has basically exhausted every financial assistance option through FSA. So the participants will have to work on how to communicate this information and how do you engage empathetically with this farmer So that's the first scenario. And then if we go to the next one, this second scenario, the idea here is many FSA employees work within rural communities, and it can be difficult to maintain appropriate boundaries when responding to a customer who might be experiencing some mental health challenges. So in this one, and thanks to Allison for working on this, the story is you've known this farm family for years and years, and this farmer unfortunately lost his arm in an accident, didn't have an insurance policy to help with that accident. They're struggling to pay their debts. The family is dropping out of activities that were important to them, like the kids' extracurriculars and going to church. You've heard that this farmer has been going and drinking quite a bit at the local bar during the day. And now this farmer's coming into the office to see what resources might be available. And the employee is hearing the farmer say things like, this is all my fault. I feel like I'm just a parasite on my family. Sometimes I think my children would be better off without me. So again, similar processing questions here. What signs stand out to you? How would you respond to this? What resources might you offer? And then an additional question here, how might you respond if you could smell alcohol on the farmer's breath? The update to this is that a couple days later you hear from his wife. She wants to know whether he came to talk, what the FSA employee thinks of the situation, that he's, her husband's really strong, he's gotten through difficult times, and he does it seems like he'd been quiet for a while, but something seems different. His mood's lifted, he seems happier. Later in the day, the farmer himself stops by the office and says, thanks for your help, I've figured out how to handle this. So again, what signs stand out to you? And the sudden shift in mood is, of course, meant to be a warning sign of suicide that's coming up here. So what resources would you offer? How might you respond? What stands out to you as signs here? Then we've got the third scenario. So the things that we're aiming for with this scenario are talking about a disaster event that has crop damage, where there's limited tools that can assist, and then long wait times or delays to get things approved by the national office. So this scenario is about a farmer who has had significant damage to his farm because of bad flooding. The farmers had to clear the land of sand and debris and things, and then has experienced a loss in revenues from not being able to plant crops. The farmer lost some stored grain, applied for assistance from the USDA. There are no other resources that are available, and the farmer's experiencing significant financial hardship. When coming to see you, there's some different signs things are not going well. Hasn't bathed in a long time, doesn't seem cool and calm like they used to be. The farmer is pacing and wringing their hands while they're waiting to meet. And then the update is that there was a delay in the funds. The farmer comes into the office to ask why the funds haven't been received yet, and the farmer's refusing to sit down, is being very loud, and asks when they can expect the money to come through, saying that they really need this and they're not leaving until they have specific answers. So again, the questions are really meant to process the scenario as it is presented to participants, and prepare them to have that practice of what would you do and what would you say, and let's try some things out.
Courtney, just one quick note for this one. The office that he applied for help from, it would be I'm guessing it's the Natural Resource Conservation Service.
Thank you. And thanks to Mark for working on this one.
Yeah, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and then no S at the end of services.
Oh, natural.
And I don't know if it matters with the previous scenario to mention just around that kind of the development piece on the last scenario, where the the customer's spouse comes into the office or calls or something like that.
What can I,
Here
where?
it is, under the update section. Just for the instructors, I don't know if this was in the instructor notes, but just to mention, you know, if Mrs. McDougall is also on the loan, or there's a written agreement in the office that there can be information shared with Mrs. McDougall if she's not on the loan, then, you know, our staff can talk about the program and the loan piece or program participation piece with Mrs. McDougall.
So to include the information that that's okay, that they have gotten approval to be able to do that.
Or Courtney, you could say, you know, without looking at the files, you're not positive that she is. I mean, because I think it's a best practice that you'd want to go check.
Right.
Before
Yeah,
having.
it's just a detail in case, you know, that comes up during the scenario and employees are trying to figure out whether or not they can say anything. That's just kind of the guidance here from the national offices, that we don't share information about program participation unless the person who's we're talking to is actually participating in the program or has some kind of, is there a form? Right. So some kind of, yeah, some kind of written release. Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't hear that.
Can you actually, it's the screen
Yeah,
on the mic.
okay, so, right, so as you're typing down there, we don't release information to anybody that is not on the loan or participating in the program with the borrower, with the customer. With the customer. So if they both participate in all the farm program stuff together, then they could obviously release it. If they're a borrower, if she's also a borrower, or there's a release document in the file, we can talk all day on details.
Yeah, now obviously that doesn't get into like the sharing about like one customer's emotional or mental space. I don't remember where we came down on that. I thought that it was, I thought the guidance that we shared in the training was that we're also not sharing that.
You're suggesting even if they're a cosigner or on the loan, that may not be appropriate.
I am thinking that our attorneys are going to say that's probably outside of the scope of an employee's position.
They can only talk about the financial piece.
They can only talk about the program piece. Right. Yeah, and right. And obviously, when it comes to like our farm loans, for example, because we're supervised credit, I mean, we get into a lot of customers' personal information. But you know, as long as it's pertaining to the program, our staff can talk about it within those parameters that Mark just wrote down.
How's that?
So Mark and Courtney, I think these scenarios, these are fantastic. I mean, I can see our extension educators. In fact, I've had a couple of these in different renditions. At the same time, they're complicated enough. Like between now and September 10th, I'll be ready for this. But it might be good. I don't know if it's possible maybe to set up like a Google document with the scenarios, and then maybe as professionals we could go in and just, you know, add our thoughts and our notes and, you know, like how might Lori Zero approach this, or what kinds of questions, because I don't just automatically have all the answers to these. I would like to be able to learn from you all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I know, you know what I'm saying? I think I know the principles, but some more specific training from one another might be very useful.
Would you like to have that available before the training, or is that what you're suggesting? Just to put it
I would love to have it before the training.
Yeah, okay. So we'll put it out on Google Docs, and then each of you will be given access to it. Add notes or thoughts or questions that might be helpful for everyone.
It might be easiest if you add your thoughts in a comment. That way your name is attached to the edit that is in there. I know Google Docs already keeps track of who does what edit. I think with the comment feature, it might be just more apparent who's made each comment. So perhaps we could use that feature to include any questions that come to mind for you or your ideas about how you might approach the situation.
Okay.
And then Mark, I think it's just a language thing, but you know, in your second sentence when it talks about a spouse, you know, that spouse, if they are participating in the program, they are also a customer.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So just take that.
So it would probably be, it is okay to talk with a spouse or other person about the program or financial situation only if there is a release, right?
Yeah.
Up the first one, the spouse or other person about the program.
FSA does not release information with anybody who is not on the loan or participating with the customer in the program. So
yep, and then it is okay to talk with a spouse or other person. Right, because sometimes it's a child who's translating for a parent about the program or financial situation only if there's a release or if it's not really a spouse, it would be another customer, right? If they're participating in the program.
There's a release or
if they are participating in the program.
Also. How's that?
Is that fine? Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes it could be somebody like MSU that's been given authorization to, we can release information in, or it could be the spouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. John, thanks for the suggestion about putting it out on Google Docs. I think that will be helpful. Well, okay, so we really just wanted to kind of get everybody on the same page so that you kind of knew how the day would go, how the groups will be formed, your roles, have a chance to sort of chew on the scenarios a little bit and ask questions. I think we've covered all of these pieces. By Friday, I will send out an update with the relevant documents that you can print off or take with you on your laptop. We'll put this out on Google Docs as well. Are there other questions or issues that we should discuss? Well, okay, I think I need to pass it over to Esther to talk about logistics and such.
Okay. So we've run into some issues with just the lodging situation at the hotel.